Greetings and God bless. I just wanted to do a little piece about judgmentalness. And in the complex post traumatic growth situation, um, you you're making decisions and you're stating your needs, and you're often the one that's doing disclosure. Because a lot of people, the reason why complex post traumatic situations occur is there's somebody that is toxic, that's ill, that's possessed by demons, and the other good people who have leverage, who have insulation, and that could put somewhat of a stop to it, aren't. Um, they're just capitulating, they just wanna keep everything going along, the status quo, and so they're letting this abusive tyrant, whether it's in the family or in the workplace or in the organization, the school, the, political system, they're letting it occur, and, uh, and they're not saying anything. There's what's called the conspiracy of silence. And, it's interesting because when there was a different political candidate around, people were constantly writing books about, complaining, threatening to kill that person, threatening to kill the person's children. People were saying, yeah, kill his children. Um, and what do you think? What kind of system do you think that one is? When, the supposed, narcissist is like, everybody's like, "Kill the guy, kill his children," and it's allowed, compared to the a new one where, people are being censored, um, new totalitarian systems are being implemented, and, I really don't know for sure about any of these people, but it's definitely a good compare and contrast, if you know what I mean. And I wanted to go into, so when we're trying to heal, when we're trying to have post-traumatic growth in an environment that is generally toxic, that's either actively um, catering to the malignant narcissist, or where people are just kind of clueless. Um, Boundaries have to be made. And for instance, when you look at a cell of a body, you've seen movies, or not movies, documentaries, where there's like this little cell and you see the little, organism stuff moving, and but that cell has a boundary. So everything that's alive has boundaries. Like we have a boundary of our skin between the air. And what boundaries do is they protect us from things in our environment. We have boundaries within our body. And so some extreme people would be like, well, boundaries are judgmental. Let's say you can't stand cigarette smoke. So you say, no cigarette smokers. Somebody could say, well, that's being judgmental. Or let's say you're a vegan and you say you're never going to interact with or be friends with anybody that eats meat. So some would say that's being judgmental. There's people who are in monasteries, and so women aren't allowed. And some would say that's being judgmental. And I'm sure that's being changed right now. And I'm sure there's biological women who are claiming to identify as men and going into monasteries. And I bet it's not like working out like they thought it would. I bet those biological women identifying as men are probably getting pregnant. and having babies and still identifying as a man. And uh, so some people would say just anything that's against the current agenda, they would say that's being judgmental. But nobody is saying that the current agenda is judgmental. So if somebody identifies as a pickle, and let's say I identify as a pickle, and the somebody else will says, well, you're a human being, and I'm like, no, I'm a pickle. Um, like, of course but that's what's going on, in my opinion. And when um, so when the person who identifies as a pickle, like, nobody's saying that they're being kind of judgmental about others who are refusing to see them as a pickle. Let's say they just look like this. They're wearing a jacket and a shirt, and they're like, I'm a pickle. You should know I'm a pickle. So, do you understand what I'm saying? So, anything, any determination is a judgment. Any conviction of a determination is judgmentalness. And what I'm noticing is that only one way that somebody is allowed to be judgmental, and it's just whoever's in charge of the current narrative, they're allowed to be judgmental. So certain people are allowed to call everybody racist. Certain people are allowed to call everybody else, um, a killer and you know, just I don't know, like evil. And nobody's saying that's judgmental. Nobody is saying, "Hey, it seems like we're a little extreme here." Um, so I just am noticing that. I'm noticing that there's this double standard about being judgmental. And let's say you're working at a farm and you're having to determine, do I put this rotten fruit in the bag to sell at the store, or do I put this fresh fruit in the store, right? That's judgmentalness. You have to have standards. And that is judgmentalness. Just like, do you want to put a pedophile in your child's bedroom, or not? Like, and some would say that's being judgmental. And if that's when we are there, folks. And with that mentality, with the absolute absence of parents being responsible, grandparents being responsible for the children, um, and where having any discernment, any standards, judgmentalness, where that's not allowed, and yet these folks are still buying organic food at Whole Foods, and they're going to their yoga class. Like, we have jumped the shark. We are catapulting towards our own demise. And I am here to encourage people to be judgmental. Now, we may make mistakes. Maybe we are going to select a bad apple, and we'll bring it home, and it was a mistake. It didn't work out. And that's how we learn. That's adulthood. That's the human experience. The human experience is not a bed of roses. It's not icing on the cake all the time. Sometimes we do make mistakes, but that's our God given right. That's the whole point of free will. And the thing is, other people's will, they have no right over us. So if they want us all to be vegan, if they want us all to have a sex change, that's not right. If you want to be vegan, if you want to change something, that's your right. But I don't have a right to say, oh, you need some cosmetic surgery. I really don't like how your eyes are. I don't like how your lips are. Or let's say somebody has had cosmetic surgery and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's bad cosmetic surgery. You should get a different type of cosmetic surgery," that I think. I mean, because that's absolutely insane. Nobody has a right over you. The only people that have rights over people are parents taking care of their children or adult children taking care of elderly parents. When you are responsible for when you have somebody's life in your hands, uh, then. But perfect strangers are not responsible for me. And perfect strangers who I think are insane, irresponsible, and outright evil certainly do not have um, control over my body or anybody else's body for that matter that you know is in my proximity. Um, and I just wanted to let people know, people start being an American. If if you were born here, like learn a little bit about Patrick Henry, about give me liberty or give me death. Like learn a little bit about what made this country great. It's based on Judeo-Christian principles. It's based on the Bible. It's a Christian nation. And what makes the Judeo-Christian religion distinct from all the others is that it is about free will and it's about having a relationship with God, and just one God, the Creator God. And there are people who are like, but there's all these other, I'm a Hindu or I'm a Native American, and then we have a million gods. What you have are fallen angel. And yes, they are powerful. They are knowledgeable. They are very seductive. Yeah, but they are not the creator God. The creator God is only the prime creator. And the only way to that God is through his son. Now, if you had a son that you sent to save this this earth from evil, because that's the story that's always going on, right? Is it's a battle between good and evil. So let's say you sent your son and to a bunch of ungrateful wretches, and those ungrateful wretches not only killed the son but smeared his name and actively reject him and despise him and loathe him and heap insults upon him. Now, what would you do? So people have this fantasy. I used to have this fantasy when I was a new ager. I was like, oh, God will love me. But I was rejecting Jesus. So what would a father do? He sent his son who did a great labor for us. And but the people that God sent the son to help, those people killed him and insulted him and still insult him 2,000 years later. What would that God do if he loved his son? Of course, he wouldn't want to have anything to do with people who rejected his son. And so in that and so what made America great, why we had God's blessing is because we embraced Jesus. God blesses those who embrace his son. It's just inevitable. Now, that is not to say that believers don't have challenges, but you do have God's blessing, the most important blessing, which is eternity with Him through His Son. So now, I would say maybe the past like 20 years, and it's probably been longer, but I'm, only 52. So, um, but people have been rejecting God, and Christians have been rejecting God, in my opinion, more so, I would say, in the past 20 years. But it's definitely been occurring, maybe since the 60s. Um, and the thing is, God is a God of informed consent and healthy boundaries. So, back to judgmentalness, like people are like, oh, the God of the Bible is so judgmental and he's so brutal. The thing is, if you actually look into what happened, God, uh, I mean, I can't say I'm a Bible scholar, but there were good reasons why God did certain things. Um, and And you know what? A lot of the heroes of the Bible are some of the more jerky people um, in literature. I mean, there's some very kind of bizarre, creepy, eerie people and behaviors in the Bible. So God isn't saying, "Oh, I'm trying to find perfect, nice people." He's trying to have a relationship with people who are willing to have a relationship with Him. And when people are not having a relationship with Him, and inevitably they start pursuing a relationship with another deity. And those other deities are fallen angels, unclean spirits, and demons, and they like Lucifer presents himself as an angel of light. So yes, these other gods are beautiful and glorious and blah 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 because they can look like that, but they're not really that way, and they are going to end up burning in hell and taking whoever has been seduced by them to hell. And hell wasn't built for humans. Hell was built for fallen angels. So it's a really not a good place for somebody's eternal soul to reside. And you know this. You know this in your heart. You know in your heart that Jesus is real and that hell is real, and that you know that you want Jesus and you don't want hell. You know that. I mean, at the very least, you know you don't want to burn in hell. And for somebody who really sincerely wants to burn in hell, like God help you. Seriously, like you need some major supernatural support. And ask somebody to pray for you if you really want to be burn in hell, because you know what? You don't. Because eternity is a long time. Maybe you want to burn in hell for 10 years or 100 years or 1,000 years, but you don't. You don't want your soul there for all of eternity, because that's all of eternity. It's countless, it's infinite. So, anyways, I just wanted to talk about this double standard of judgmentalness, in that it seems to me that healthy people with little leverage, um, using any judgmentalness, uh, like having any setting boundaries, is called judgmental. And then those who are in power are able to be judgmental. They can call you wrong and you wrong and you wrong, and take away your job and destroy your family, and ruin your reputation. And that's not called judgmentalness. But if somebody says anything that the powers that be disagree with or want to control, that's the so what do you guys think? um, do you think that only the powerful people get to practice judgment, but it's not judgmental? Do you think that um, people with low resources and leverage, do they not have any right, because only rich people should have a right to make a judgment, or only certain demographics, only the only oppressed people get to make judgment now? And what do you think is the solution? I mean, I just think, hold to your boundaries and your standards, and just keep speaking up. I mean, it's not effective because all people do are like, they reject you. But I think, it's good to make a case for freedom. And that's what America is. That's why so many people try to be here. A lot of people, I think, leave the United States because it's challenging, it's competitive, because so many people are trying to be here. And I think that there's economic stuff that's being engineered to make it nearly impossible to live here. But spiritually, supernaturally, America, it's a Christian nation. It's has the blessing of God. It is it's a relative city. It's a city. It's in the family of Israel. Um, and yes, Israel has had difficulties, and it has the blessing of God. It just does. That's what the Bible says. God has promised to bless Israel and those who bless Israel. And that is not to say that Israelis have done perfect things. And I mean, I just can't believe that they they used an injection that was, experimental on older people, chasing them down and stuff like that, and practicing discrimination. Like, I just can't believe that, because I mean, I grew up in New York, and there was a lot of Jewish people who brought up the Holocaust, and I'm like, what is going on here? Like, the descendants are practicing the same thing that they talked about a lot as a bad thing. Like, it's just unreal. We are in such unreal times, and now it's like becoming normal because it's just been going on, and there's just some new, you know, crazy thing that occurs like every day now. So, but we're still humanity, and this is still a free country. And I think there is a place for being judgmental, and and I think, everybody has a right to it. If somebody wants to prance around in a ballerina outfit at work, um, amongst consenting adults, you know, that's that's possible, right? I mean, especially now, that's likely going to happen. And if one of those consenting adults is like, this isn't what I want a professional environment where people are wearing pants, um, and covering their nether regions. Like, that's somebody's right. And yeah, that's judgmental. Just like if you're driving in traffic and you make a right turn when the light, you've made a judgment. So we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, I think, is what I'm trying to say. So, God bless.